Now this is the house my parents built $1 million business out of, and you will see exactly how they mixed a functionality between a residential property and a commercial property, starting off with our own family medical clinic. So let's get started. Now this was the area that we parked our cars in, and also the area that I actually used to love playing cricket in. And of course, broken a couple of windows here and there, but that was all part of my childhood. I had a very, very great childhood growing up in this house. Even this tour that we'll be going through together today will be very, very nostalgic for me because I lived there from when I was about 4 years old to till I was about 11 years old. So for quite a bit of my childhood. And of course, that's where a lot of our core memories are built. But let's go right in. A lot of the plans have kind of been taken up from here because the house is actually being sold. And that's the reason we're taking this opportunity to go on this tour. So walking in, interestingly enough, I remember this house being a lot bigger, but that's of course because I was actually smaller. I used to have to look up to see everything. Now everything seems a lot smaller and congested for me. So I'm really getting to see exactly how small this property was. And although this house looks like it's a multi-story property, it actually wasn't originally built like that. Originally, we only had the ground floor and the first floor, and this ground floor was used as the clinic. It was never used as a residential area. So starting off, we'll see the cabin number 1. Now this was the main cabin where my dad used to sit and provide any consultations to patients that we would have walking in. Funny incident that happened in this room actually is when a neighbor's kid came in talking about how he's hearing some sounds in his ears. And my dad used one of his devices for the ear canal with the light and saw that there was actually a cockroach. And I was sitting in the room when I saw his face and the realization he had on the fact that there's literally a cockroach in this kid's ear. He took it out right in front of us and the cockroach actually flew away immediately. This was cabin number 2. This is where some of the nurses used to sit down. There used to be 2 desks here for 2 of them to sit down and provide any consultations if they needed to talk to patients. Interestingly enough, we actually had an in-house pharmacy as well. So this is cabin number 3, and we have the pharmacy room. This is where the pharmacist used to sit down and actually make a lot of the medicine in-house, as much as she could. And we even have this little rack here where we used to store all of our medicine. If you actually look at the roof of this property, it seems like it's sort of new, but that's because it was recently renovated to be sold. And it got a nice little design. This is kind of the design that I used to look at when going to sleep as a kid. But looking at the walls, you can tell really just how old this house is. Now this house has actually been flooded in multiple times. The Indian monsoon season, it's a real one. It definitely destroys a lot of properties' ground area. So that's something that we've had to deal with a lot of times. Now this area is essentially sort of like the area before the operating room. Now the operating room is very interesting, and to me it still blows my mind that we had an operating room right in our house. But this is sort of like the prep area and any other desks and areas that we wanted to keep in terms of files and the documentation. This right here is actually the operating room. We used to have a massive operating table over here with a lot of like medical equipment for surgery. My mother was a gynecologist, my dad was a general physician, and they've done a lot of procedures there, even on patients including me, my friend, and some close family members as well. I remember I got my lips sutured from my mother, and my friend got his forehead sutured, and it's always a very interesting conversation that they always bring up. They always compliment my mother's ability to suture. So who knows, maybe that'll pass on to me as well. Now moving on to the last area of this floor, this is sort of the outside backyard area. I think this is sort of like was used as a mini kitchen for the clinic because we used to have a rack there for utensils and for cups and stuff, glasses. This as the primary storage room of this floor. It's actually very, very spooky, and some of the roof has been ruined due to a fire that almost actually started up in this room. It's weird to see it this empty actually because like I mentioned earlier, we cleaned up everything and gotten rid of this property. Some of it actually went to our new house and it's being used as extra storage there. And this washroom, this was the main washroom, and I don't think I've actually seen this area in over 10 years because even on the trips that I've come to India, we use the washroom on the actual residential area on the first floor. Like I mentioned earlier, the ground floor and the first floors were the first two floors of this house that were built, because this was the clinic area, the upstairs was the residence. And we actually got this house built ourselves. My parents kind of did all of the planning of how the layout will be. So it's very, very interesting to think that they were so serious about their career as healthcare physicians that they actually planned out this whole commercial area to make sure that it's operating as a proper healthcare clinic. So that's incredible to see, and is actually made selling this house a very difficult task, because we had to find a very niche client that was willing to sort of make do with all this commercial area that we've got built here. This is the reception area. The receptionist used to sit here. TV goes over there, and they used to obviously greet all the clients and everyone. Now these paintings have been taken down, and although these don't seem to trigger any of my memories, this was something I definitely remember, because I always found it funny that Hanumanji's face has the Ramji's bow kind of coming out of his mouth, and I remember thinking that, I feel like the artist could have made some wiser decisions over there. But this was obviously a very beautiful painting. I'm actually going to talk to my parents and see if we can store this somewhere in our current house, just because of how memorable it is for me as well. My mother, somehow the builders always miss out on making unique functional uses out of the extra areas, but my mother somehow convinces them to build something underneath the staircase. Now this is a full functional bathroom that's built underneath here. So as tiny as it is, this was very, very helpful for any clients to go to, or you be used as a second washroom on this floor. Now let's move up to the residential area. Now you've seen the clinic. Now that definitely did not build $1 million business. The second floor, however, paints a much better picture of the transition they had towards building their $1 million empire. But before we reach there, this is the residential area. This is probably the floor that evokes the most amount of emotions out of me, because this is where I pretty much grew up as a kid. These railings, actually, we used to hang off of these, talking to our neighbors. We had a very, very healthy community. There is like a crutch, what's known in Indian terms a crutch, where a lot of kids come for tutoring and stuff right beside us. So we used to say hi to the kids right over here. The other neighbors on this side are some of my childhood best friends that I still talk to this day. Just incredible people that we've actually spent a lot of Indian festivals with, such as Holi, Diwali. What's actually very, very special for me is that my little sister, who was only 10 years old, has lived in this house for a couple of years as well. So it's going to be in her core memories as well, because she used to hang off to these railings, and my parents, due to worrying about her safety, got these installed on top of this railing. Now moving into the actual living space. So we've actually been living in Canada for over 13 years now, and that's where our main house is, other than our other new house in India. That's where I tend to be most of the time, and my parents often like to come there, having their second home and second life almost over there and away from their business. Of course, they still need to work with the different time zone, which is incredibly rough on them. I think it's nice to call two countries your home country. I remember just actually being very embarrassed of inviting friends over to this house, just due to how small it was. I mean, this is the living area, and with the couch over here and a couch over here and a water cooler over here, there was not much room here actually. After all, this is only about less than half of my current bedroom space. Now that's very, very small. But regardless, I never shied away from inviting friends over. My parents were always very hospitable to everyone that came over as well. As much as I was embarrassed, I guess that was just me being a little kid, not really acknowledging the full reality and embracing it. Moving out of the living area, we have the kitchen area. And I think this really, really paints of what our living situation used to be like before. This kitchen is tiny. Thinking about all the utensils rack over here, the stove area over here, and there was not much room in this kitchen at all. In fact, in the hot summers of India, it used to get incredibly hot in this room while cooking. And I remember how difficult it was for my grandmother, for my mother, and any other helpers we had in the house. Yeah, it's just crazy to me looking at our kitchens now. Our kitchens now, we have is about 4 times the size, and there's 3 of them. 3 kitchens in the same house. Like, that is crazy compared to what this used to be. I have the fridge out here because, of course, the kitchen was too small to have the fridge. So the fridge area and any other kind of storage area of things that we would keep here as well. Now, moving into this room, this is the room where both my parents and me and my sister used to sleep in. We used to have a small little TV here that I used to watch TV on. We had a computer over here. I remember playing RuneScape, going on like old, very, very early days of social media, even before Facebook. I think it was called Orkut. Yeah, the Orkut days. Oh, like it was like the most early days of social media, and I don't even remember what we used to do on it. But this is where the early days of RuneScape, at Orkut days, where we had a bed over here, we had dressing table over here for anybody to kind of get ready, and we have the washroom over here. One thing that I think my parents did really well on is building a lot of cupboards. So we had cupboards over here, and we have cupboards all on the top area over here. So there was never shortage of storage. And I think that's what really allowed us to make sure that this was a very functional house, because although there's not much in like ground area to be moving and to be living, the storage overhead was just made like so much easier. Now, this was the bathroom that we had. And what's actually very funny to me is, I don't think I realized it as a kid, but some of the tiles here are installed upside down. Actually, most of them are. I think the rare two tiles are installed correctly, which I guess just goes to show about the low level of care that some of the skilled workforce in India has. Like, considering that they're not educated, they don't really get those the same opportunities always. Funny enough, I saw the same tiles in Dehradun, which we just had a trip to because of a great winter hike we did in India, and that video will be uploaded next week, so definitely stay tuned for that. But I saw the same tiles in the bathroom of the poor people that we were living with, and they had the same thing happen. They had like some tiles that were installed upside down. So I guess it's a universal India workforce thing. So other than the kitchen and the living room and the bedroom number 1, this is bedroom number 2. And this is where my grandparents used to live in. What you can already see is that it's a bigger room than what my parents and we used to live in. And I think that just goes to show about the values my parents have always carried with them. Indian culture is truly beautiful in the sense that they always teach you about respecting your elders, providing as much care to them as possible. And I think my parents have really encompassed that, because, I mean, it's such a small thing, but giving the larger room to the grandparents, even though they don't really need that much extra room, just goes to show that they prioritize their comfort and their convenience at all costs. So this is where my grandparents used to live. They had a bed over here. Their TV was over here. We've even got a temple, mandir area built into the house right here, because in Indian culture, you almost always need to have a temple incorporated in the house somewhere. Of course, lots of cabinets and a walk-in closet. I guess we would call this in Canadian culture. But a nice little storage area for my grandparents, which once again seems tiny compared to when I was a kid. We had the bathroom over here, and once again, just the amount of thought that went into the care of my grandparents and building this house. They made sure that this bathroom was connected to our bathroom, and we had a little bit of open space up there. The reason for this is because if any emergency happens to anything wrong happens to my grandparents in the bathroom, they can easily call us for help, and we can hear them if we enter that bathroom. That is just truly beautiful. And, these are values that clearly I've grown up with, and I want to incorporate into my life as much as possible. I think it's the only thing to do. I know not many people have great relationships with their parents, but, the parents that have really served you and cared and support for you, you should always give back to them. And even if they haven't, maybe you can be the one, you can be that odd duckling that still serves them back as much as possible. Oh, it's a beautiful day here in India, and this is the backyard of I guess we would call this the balcony. This is the balcony of our first floor, and it's quite a mess over here, even with some broken pots. Mostly because there was actually a storm that occurred here in India just less than a week ago. But this was essentially used as like an outside area to maybe rest. We had our laundry machines over here as well. I remember there being a huge scandal in my school. Considering I live right in front of the school, there was a huge scandal in the school about who the heck had this old washing machine in their house. And the reason they knew that there was a very old washing machine in this house is because we were moving it from the first floor to the second floor from in front of the house. So we were actually getting it lifted to the second floor. And they could see that from the school, and they would be poking fun at it. And I remember thinking that, oh my God, that is my house that they're talking about. And this is so embarrassing. But yeah, we used to have a very old washing machine here, and this would be like a lounging area. Indian houses are very interesting because, like, although it's an actual house, it's very much connected to a lot of the conjoining houses as well. So now we're outside again. I'm about to go to the second floor where the true magic really started. But before we move on to that, I remember right after I left school in India and I was about to move to Canada, I'd be chilling here eating lunch while my friends would be yelling at me from those classrooms, just like saying hi, Jathan, we miss you, and all of those things. And it was just a really, really funny memory because, of course, for them, it was just like a funny joke to do in the middle of class, and the teachers would get really, really mad. But it felt really, really nice because, it was nice that they all supported me, and it really sucked that I was leaving them. But between that transition, I remember actually sitting out here for lunch. This is really where they started to transition towards their business ventures and taking some risks in life. Now, the clinic was well established. Everybody at the school knew about us, so they would send any kid that needed help to our clinic. But my parents decided that they wanted to pursue something even bigger to make sure that we were well financially supported, we were well off while going to Canada. And the way that they transitioned into the business world is they started to provide coaching to nurses to be able to go and pursue nursing abroad. So that was a very, very interesting merge between the field of immigration and the field of medicine. And while providing that coaching, they built this second floor where a lot of those tuition classes were provided because they had the clinic still running while operating this business. Now, this was one of the classrooms, and we had a whiteboard over here, a whiteboard over here. There used to be multiple seats, and now we've walked into that room, but actually the main door to this floor leads into this kind of main walkway because a person that might need to go into that classroom does not necessarily need to see all the other classrooms and rooms. Moving into the rest of the area, we actually have this room. So you can see that it was constructed very, very well because we actually, although it's a massive room, it can be closed by just installing the doors right here. So in case there was like a big seminar or a big clinic event that they're hosting, they can still host it in this room. But if they're just hosting the classes, they can shut down the doors and have the classes happening in each individual room. I've never seen this floor this empty in my life, but there used to be like multiple computers over there. There used to be some computers over here, and this used to be another classroom. I remember being a huge fan of these windows. I had felt like I was living the dream because we actually ended up turning this room into a bedroom after we stopped providing those nanny coaching classes. This room became a bedroom, and this was like fancy living with these nice high-rise windows. So I remember whenever I would visit India again, I would always opt in to live in this bedroom instead of like downstairs. So the only downfall of this room, however, was the slow internet speed because obviously the router was on the ground floor. I don't even remember what speeds we used to touch on, but I think it was as little as like 50 or 100 kbps, so like kilobytes per second. But you know what? It was a compromise I was willing to make for the nice luxury living of this room. So yeah, not much on about this floor other than the fact that they ended up shutting down their nanny coaching business. Other than those rooms, of course, we got the one bathroom over here, but they ended up shutting down their nanny coaching business and start their full-on immigration practice of sending students abroad to Canada, to the UK, to the US, and to many other countries. What we specialized in was sending students, their family members on tourist visas and visitor visas, and also the people's spouses, so on spouse visas. That's nice. Now, their business ventures did not just stop on the second floor. They actually built this area on the rooftop as well. This is where a lot of classes were provided as well. So you can still see some of the old equipment that's stacked in here. although this was built with the intent of having classrooms in here, I don't think that venture was too successful. That's actually the main reason as to why our business currently doesn't provide much coaching. We mostly provide visa services, but I think we're ready to provide some coaching services again, just because we really want to provide value to students and expand our business. But yeah, although this was built for the intent of being a classroom, we mostly used it as storage. And this rooftop area was a very nice and memorable place for me, because we would have like a manja, kind of like a small bed installed over here, and just kind of chill out underneath the sun. And you know, my grandmother would feed us some nice snacks or some nice fruits that she would cut up. So a very nice memorable area for me. I remember this was also used as a storage area. There used to be actually a very friendly pigeon that started living with us for a few years, until a neighbor's cat, or maybe a street cat, ended up killing it, which was very unfortunate. Actually, it was actually Raghuvinder Uncle Ji that broke the news to me about the dead pigeon. So you can imagine how long ago that was when I was a little kid, and how long ago Raghuvinder Uncle Ji has been there. I don't even think he remembers that pigeon, but I do. That pigeon will always be in my heart. So that was pretty much the house tour. I honestly really enjoyed just kind of walking in the old house that I used to live in. We're going to miss this property a lot. A lot of memories have been built in this house. A lot of lives have been saved in this house as well. Other than that, I hope I've kind of learned a lot from this property, as I think many of us do from our childhood home. It kind of builds the roots of where you are from. And I think you should never really forget that. I hope to carry the same kind of values living in my life and building all the amazing properties or businesses that I hope to build. I'm going to try to be as functional as possible. I think that's one thing that I learned from my mother, that to make use of the space that you have. Don't just disrespect the space that you have and cause unnecessary clutter. Don't have unnecessary amounts of resources that you don't even end up using. So that's something that's definitely a big takeaway for me. I'm going to miss this property a lot. I'm really glad I got to have this one last cricket sessions with my childhood best friends in front of this house once again. Just a very core memory for me unlocked, and a new core memory actually built. So what's actually really funny is while filming this video, I noticed my childhood friend is here from Canada as well. I saw his mother and I went up to go say hi. They invited me in, but I was like, yeah, I'm just going to finish up this video and then I'll be right back. So I'm very excited to go talk to them. What's interesting about India and specifically Punjab is a lot of families and kids are moving to Canada and to abroad. It's funny that a lot of my childhood friends are actually in Canada as well. But coincidentally, I somehow never run into them in Canada. I always see them here in India. So interestingly enough, we actually have this sign of our actual company, our immigration company, with the no parking here. So, you know, maybe the new homeowners will actually keep this, and that'll be a little part of the house's past, still in the house's present. Yeah, so call us for any immigration needs. 70613-70613. Okay, so we're back at our current residence now, and it's just incredible to see the amount of efficient use of space that we had at the old property. And I think that's been my biggest takeaway from the old house. Of course, it's super inspiring what my parents have been able to do with that little amount of space and how they built up their business to be the way that it is today. Currently now, in terms of fast forwarding to today, we have about over 12 offices, which is just an incredible feat for what my parents have done with no business knowledge and the fact that they used to have a medical background. I've been hoping to carry the same values with me. I've been working on making this current residence as efficient as possible. I've been able to build a workout room, work from home office, and we're actually building a full-on office space here on the second floor of this house as well, which is incredible. If you can see, Chirag's here working with me as well. But yeah, this house is like 10 times better than the old house. I'm super grateful. And I'd love to give you guys a full tour of exactly how we're building an in-house studio, multiple studios in this house actually, how I built the gym, how I built the office and how incredible that looks, and how we're building an actual commercial space here as well. So stay tuned for that video. I think I'll make that video right before I leave for Canada. So stay tuned, and thank you so much for being a part of my life.